Now Season of Mastery has officially closed, it does beg the question, will we see Season of Mastery again? Will it just be Season of Mastery 2, which is exactly the same as Season of Mastery 1 was, but it's just been rebooted? Will we get something completely different? Will it be a TBC Season of Mastery? Who knows? But my best guess would be yes, and I don't think it'll be far off until we get something announced, because really, if you think back to TBC, it wasn't that far into TBC before the original Season of Mastery was actually announced, and then there was beta testing going on. In fact, I would say it was probably around this point in time. So you would expect it again. Blizzard are starting to see a bit of a drop-off in the amount of people playing, especially at this moment in time where a lot of guilds have cleared Ulduar, or some guilds have disbanded because they can't get through the content, or people have just got bored already, because we do consume content at such a rapid pace nowadays that even though we've only had 4 clears currently in EU, this is going to be the 5th this week, even people in our guild are looking for what's next. And if you watch me over on Scottejaye87 on Twitch, you know what we're going to be doing next on the 3rd of March, but I don't want to talk about that here. So with all that said and no announcement yet, I've been sat thinking about all the possibilities when it comes to Season of Mastery and how we actually consume content today on these classic servers to pitch an idea like I'm on Dragon's Den. First, a quick word from our sponsor before we talk more World of Warcraft. What are you doing here?
What about my world?
Well, what's wrong with your world? These want to know about World of Warcraft, not your mobile game.
That is not true. Hero Wars has vibrant graphics, cool gameplay, and a user-friendly interface.
Okay, well, I've got it on my phone. Should we have a look?
Tell them more about it.
I'll tell you more. It doesn't matter what type of class you ordinarily play, in Hero Wars, they really have got it all. From cyborgs to aliens to vampires, robots, bunny-eared people, whatever those are, and tons of skills to go along with them that are unique to the class that you're playing. As soon as I saw Chaba, I knew I needed to unlock him, mainly because he's got a skill called Fat Layer, which I can at least relate to. For all you World of Warcraft players, Celeste is the real S tier. You might as well just call her a priest. She can switch between a DPS shadow form, also known as dark form, and a healer light form, which makes her useful in any situation. And to really get on board with Valentine's Day, look at this romantic skin you can get for her as well. Pretty hot. Like all these mobile games, the best thing about it is it doesn't matter where you are, you can play it. And the same goes with all mobile games. As long as you've got your phone with you, you've always got access to it. It's a great place to play on the toilet, but that's probably just me. You might rather play it on trains, planes, or just when you're traveling in general, or just got some downtime at work. And from the 13th of February, due to Valentine's Day on the 14th, you can now gather soul stones and skins and coins for 3 amazing heroes with new romantic skins that also boost their stats. So you can power up your team with Amira, Jorgen, and my favourite, Kira. As you can see, all of these skins actually look pretty awesome. As you would imagine, it's a very welcoming game, quite simple to learn, but incredibly hard to master. So if you want a game that you can really sink many hours into honing your craft, Hero Wars is probably just that. And building the perfect team is the key to victory. For example, Mojo the Shaman can't heal Darkstar the Elf as efficiently as good Grandma Martha can, while the Slow Cleaver makes a great pair with the Swift Isaac. So synergizing your group well is incredibly important. Hero Wars is a world of 6 unique modes, more than 300 Guild War servers, and 100 million players. You can play alone or see among you and your friends is the top dog. Definitely not me. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Here's a question for you. Where can you get 30,000 coins, 600 emeralds, and 5 awesome heroes to start dominating in Hero Wars right away? Too slow? The answer is the link in the description below. And remember the QR code that's been on screen this whole time? You can use your phone to take you straight to Hero Wars. So play Hero Wars now. Season of Mastery has been a big success amongst the hardcore community, especially with the addition of Soul of Iron, which actually was really cool. You may even have the achievement on Wrath Classic now if you made it to 60 without dying. My favourite addition with Soul of Iron was actually where you could see where people had died before, because their soul was left behind. It's not a big deal, but definitely was a nice touch. And it was always good going in those deadly caves and seeing tons and tons of these little souls floating around where you was like, maybe I won't go in that cave yet because I'm only level 11 and the mobs are level 19. Why you'd need to see all those souls to give you that clue, I don't know. But You know what I mean? The thing is, whilst for the hardcore community, it was amazing, and even to those who just love the vanilla leveling experience, it was also amazing, but past that, it kind of falls down. So now if you think about the most fun periods of the game, the most fun you have in every expansion, where you lose sleep because you want to be online 24 hours a day, the guild's activity is through the roof, and there's always just so much to do. Guessed it yet? At the start of an expansion, or the start of a phase, or, well, basically any birth of a fresh server. And that is the effect that the new expansions or releases of phases or fresh servers bring. They just bring that big flood of new content to consume, but it quickly gets consumed because we've mastered all of this stuff on private servers. They can even make minor changes to the boss like they did in Classic Season of Mastery 1, where they said it was actually in pre-nerf states and there was extra abilities that, you know, a lot of people never saw before, but it still didn't take particularly long to get those bosses down, because ultimately, unless we're getting brand new bosses that we don't know at all, these little minor changes will be worked out in a matter of single-digit pulls on that particular boss. So how do you capture that portion of the game but over an extended period of time, where not only will it be successful and fun, but also requires little to no effort from the devs to maintain a well-oiled machine like this one? Oh, I don't know. I should have probably thought about this and pitched you an idea rather than trying to come up with it on the spot. Maybe you can help me in the comments. What do you think I'm about to say? So let's work with Vanilla, TBC and Wrath of the Lich King and say that it's not going any further than that, although actually adding Cataclysm into this mix that I'm about to talk about would be beneficial, and you'll see why as we go through this. The average time to level a character in Vanilla, according to loads of different websites I've looked at, are about 5 to 6 days /played. Obviously some will do it faster, some will do it a lot slower. I'd probably fall in the slower camp. I get really bored leveling, and that's why currently I'm really missing Joyous Journeys, because I'm leveling a mage and it's so slow I'm nearly giving up and I'm only level 30. So let's start painting a picture. Season of Mastery Season 2 kicks off at Vanilla in a final patch state. This would include all the improvements to itemization from the gear that comes from dungeons, where it made getting hit gear, for example, more easy to obtain. The tier 0.5 sets would be in the game from the start, AQ gates already open, and everything else you would expect if the server was fully progressed right at the end of the final phase of that particular expansion, or the base game in this case. For the first 4 weeks, there's no raids open at all. You can get to 60, do your professions, do your pre-raid gearing, and maybe if you play enough, try and get an ult done. Sounds pretty standard, but this is where it gets interesting, I think. Remember, the whole point of this is to capture that prime content phase where everyone's hyped and wants to be playing as much as possible. Every phase will only last 2 weeks. The content doesn't go anywhere, so when Phase 2 hits, you'll still be doing Molten Core and Onyxia. When Phase 3 hits, when Blackwing Lair would come out, you can still do Molten Core and Onyxia, but now you've got Blackwing Lair in the mix as well. But the content is just going to be thrown at you thick and fast. You might be sat thinking, well, we'll never see a Thunder Fury or Legendaries or anything like that that takes a considerable amount of time to obtain. Yes, you won't, but by the time you're even bothered about it, it's probably going to be irrelevant, because let's say it took you 8 weeks to farm a Thunder Fury, even though you could get lucky and, you know, get it a lot quicker than that, don't get me wrong, but, you know, let's just say 8 weeks as a bit of a baseline. By then, you're going to be wanting to replace it with something else, because, you know, you're going to be moving through these phases so fast. So try not to get, like, hung up on, oh, that's not enough time to get full bis. You're not going to need full bis. That's not the point of it. The point of it is just to keep the content coming. Always having every couple of weeks things start to feel fresh again. There's loads more gear to go after. Yes, you can still go back to the other raids and get things done, but ultimately you're constantly just moving forward, rather than how it is at the moment where you're crawling forward. You know, some guilds will never clear all the content in Season of Mastery, like the Season 2, but really Season 1 of my reimagined version. But that's okay. It doesn't matter. The whole point is having fun and actually just getting lots and lots of content, lots of bosses come in fairly fast. So to cycle through all of Vanilla, it'd be 4 weeks of leveling and gearing, 2 weeks for Molten Core and Onyxia, 2 weeks where the Honor system comes out and the world bosses arrive. This would be particularly nice because it gives you another 2 weeks of Molten Core and Onyxia before then Blackwing Lair comes out for 2 weeks. 2 weeks of Zul'Gurub, where again, you'd still be doing Blackwing Lair, so you've actually sort of got 4 weeks of having a decent amount of content to do, 2 weeks of AQ, and finally 2 weeks of Nax. Following all of that would then be a 2-week TBC pre-patch period, where you can now do all of that, but with level 70 talents. So this means around 4.5 months, which is crazy really, like 18 weeks. You probably heard me rattle all that off and thought, oh great, 2 months and we're done. Well no, that's only 4.5 months, so that's a decent amount of time just to be doing vanilla. We've still got the other 2 expansions to do, or 3 if you was to put Cataclysm in. So you can sort of see where I'm going with this already. We're 4.5 months in with vanilla. Let's say TBC was about 4 months and Wrath was about 4 months. That's a nice year-long cycle of Season of Mastery, going through the trilogy of the games where the content's coming just so quick that it's just a year of constant enjoyment. Or it would be for me. So having it at this accelerated pace would just keep the game flowing. You can work the rest out really, where it's going to go. You're going to have another 14 weeks of TBC until Wrath comes, and then another 14 to 16 weeks of Wrath before it all either ends, or you then go on to Cataclysm, where you could have even quite a short period in Cataclysm just to finish the season off nicely. Now what you've got to remember is longevity and the ability to be able to just reset this server exactly a year later. Yes, there may be a legacy server where you can move your characters to. That could be some sort of classic era sort of server, you know, like what we've got now, but not exactly what we've got now because that's capped at 60, so more like a classic era graveyard for level 80s, I don't know, or 85s even if it went to Cata. You know what I mean? There'll be somewhere where your characters don't just permanently get lost. But it's going to be a year, so the odds are of you being able to ever keep more than one character up to date during this Season of Mastery is highly unlikely. So what does this mean? When it gets to the end and they launch it again, you can now just do a different class or a different spec or whatever you want to do. And it would be very difficult to get bored of the class that you're playing throughout that year because you're just not getting a lot of time to relax. So you do the first season of this as a prot warrior and then you're like, right, next season I'm going to be a healer. The season after that, you're going to be a DPS, a ranged DPS, or whatever you're going to do. Because with like content coming so fast, it would be highly unlikely for that many people, unless you completely no-life the game, to be able to have an ult to raid on as well. But don't get me wrong, there would be guilds that would be doing it 100%. In fact, I probably would try to get an ult up, but like I've said, I'm not that much of a fan of leveling, which leads me on to my next point quite nicely. Joyous Journeys could be used as an accumulative buff. So the first character you just level normally, but the second character you level, you get the 50% extra XP from Joyous Journeys. If you was mental enough to level a third one, because actually you're not bothered about raiding that much, you might jump in the odd one, but really you just want to enjoy the really fast, accelerated pace of going from vanilla to TBC to Wrath, but you want to just level characters, then the third character you level will get Joyous Journeys times 2. So you're now going to get 100% extra XP. This could be utilized really, really well on these Season of Mastery servers where actually they don't last particularly long, and my version of this, what I would recommend and love to see Blizzard do, wouldn't last as long as even the first Season of Mastery did. So having accelerated pace to leveling, even if it is after your first character, would be absolutely amazing. And of course you would want lots of those little quality of life changes in the game, such as dual spec should absolutely be in from the start. So at level 40 in the vanilla era, you can still go and get your dual spec. Having a mount tab would be in from the start. Having achievements would be in from the start, because ultimately you're going to be gaining these achievements while you're leveling, and you know all of this is going to move on to Wrath. So why wait 6, 7 months, however long it's going to be before Wrath comes out? You might as well start being able to get these straight away as soon as you create your character. Even things as minor as the level restriction being removed on summoning stones, so all it requires is a level 15 to be able to use, and you can use it all around the world, would be a good thing. So basically all of the little quality of life changes that we've got used to in Wrath of the Lich King, all just brought forward into the vanilla base game, which again, on the basis that leveling ults and being able to sub people in and out of raids would be quite difficult, because hardly anyone's going to have ults, at least having dual spec would alleviate some problems there. The one thing that I would like to see, which now this is going a little bit mental, but when you think about how difficult it would be on guilds to go from 40-man to 25-man in the space of 4.5 months, is actually if the 40-man raids were scaled down to 25. Not 10, so I'm not saying make any of them 10-mans for 10-man guilds or anything like that, but Molten Core, Blackwing Lair, AQ, Nax, they was all just scaled down to level to 25 people, so that way you can create your guild and keep it exactly the same, your roster, all the way through the 3 expansions or even the 4 expansions. Don't get me wrong, I know that would require a little bit of work from the devs, but once it's done once, it's done forever. They've got a 25-man version of Molten Core, Blackwing Lair, and all of that sat there to continuously reuse. Now, you might be sat there thinking, but I only like vanilla. This sounds horrible. Well, you've got classic era servers, which aren't going anywhere, so why do we need Season of Mastery, which is basically that with a few tweaks, duplicated? You know, we don't need classic hero servers and then a vanilla experience of Season of Mastery. Let's have something new. Let's have something a bit wacky, something that we wouldn't expect. Something like this. Because Season of Mastery ultimately should be something they can repeat over and over again, and it cycles so fast that you never get bored. You can't get all the characters to max level in one season. You can't be raiding on multiple characters every week because there's just not enough time. And the cutoff when the servers go down is so precise, it just encourages you to be there to play the following season. What do you think? I know this is like blue sky thinking. There's not, no shred of evidence or clues from Blizzard that anything like this would ever happen. But ultimately, Classic would have never happened if people didn't start shouting that we actually wanted it. So a Season of Mastery done right or done different like this, I'm just thinking completely selfish. A selfish perspective. Somebody who really likes raiding, really gets bored of the raids quite quickly because I've done them so many times on private servers and, on Classic, in retail back in the day, all of that. I've done it a lot. So when Ulduar comes out, it's great. I'm loving it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not quite bored of Ulduar yet. But it won't be long, and I'll be like, oh, come on, when's TOC coming? And then TOC's going to be cleared in 30 minutes, and it's going to be like, right, when's ICC coming? If we could get it all coming pretty fast all the time, and all in post-nerf, remember, I didn't mention that. Well, yes, I did. Actually, I did mention it, because I said it would all be in its final phase state. But of course, we don't want, hard versions of the raids. There's no need, because it all moves quick. It's all about just grabbing all those epics and, getting equipped as quick as possible, ready for the next phase that is only just around the corner. So no, we don't want pre-nerf Ulduar. Wouldn't want pre-nerf like Vash, for example. We want the easiest content because ultimately, I don't think hard content is what the majority of the Classic player base actually want. I could get shot for saying that because don't get me wrong, I enjoy difficult content. I like progressing. I like wiping until a boss dies. It's a good feeling. I don't think that's for everyone. I think there's a lot of dad guilds out there that would just happily go in, smash some loot pinatas with a reasonable amount of mechanics involved, so it feels a little bit rewarding at least. So if we could just have all the bosses in post-nerf states, so it is quite easy just to go in and get the gear, it would make it a bit more of a, I don't want to say a dungeon crawler, because it's still an MMO ultimately, but you know what I mean. It would just make it very loot-centric a whole year. Man, I'm excited even thinking about it. If they turn around and done this, you're welcome. So, like and subscribe. See ya.